Hey, Namo Buddhaya. Welcome all to our weekly Dhamma session conducted by Living Dhamma USA, Abeysekara Association of North America, and all the Dhamma friends. Today we have a um, very important personality with us, and the topic is very important too. We have Radhika ji Abeysekara today with us. She's an author, and the topic that we're going to talk today about is practicing the Dhamma with a view to Nibbana. How should one practice? So let me introduce our speaker. Mrs. Radhika Abeysekara began teaching and writing books on the Dhamma in 1989 to help reintroduce Buddha Dhamma to immigrants in non-Buddhist countries. She is the founder of the Manitoba Buddhist Vihara and Cultural Association in Winnipeg, and expanded her voluntary work of teaching and writing to both children and adults living in the West. Her publications include children's books such as Life of the Buddha and Relatives and Disciples of the Buddha, and books written for an adult audience such as Practicing the Dhamma with a View to Nibbana and Reflections. Some of her publications and talks are available at www.dhammadena.com, that is www.dhammadena.com, and the Buddhist Cultural Center in Sri Lanka. Her contributions also include representing Buddhism in interfaith conferences, coordinating and practicing in various international Buddhist celebrations, such as Manitoba Peace Celebrations and International Vesak. She was also a guest speaker at various academic and non-academic institutions. In 2016, after her retirement from a senior managerial position at the city of Winnipeg, she moved to British Columbia, where she continued her literary works. Publications such as the Madhupindaka Sutta and Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta are available on her website. She also had the opportunity to work with renowned Sri Lankan meditation masters and assisted them in some of their publications and international mindfulness children's schools. At present, she leads a quiet life focusing on her spiritual development and continues her literary contributions to Buddhism in the West. Very pleased to have Radhika ji today with us. And before we begin our topic, I wanted to see if there are any monks on call or any nuns, so we can take permission. And Radhika ji, I do not see any monks online.
Okay.
So with your permission, should we begin with the session, Practicing the Dhamma with a View to Nibbana? How should one practice? Our speaker today is Radhika ji Abeysekara. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Pankaj. Pankaj,
Yes.
members of the Abeysekara Association of North America and Dhamma friends. Thank you for inviting me to present a talk on practicing the Dhamma with a view to Nibbana. I hope that this presentation encourages and inspires you to start the serious practice of the Dhamma. I assure you that each and every one of you has the potential to take on this challenge. You would not have been attending this talk with the title that I have selected if this was not the case. The Buddha was a human being, an extraordinary human being, but he assured us that what he has achieved can be achieved by others. He was a teacher of gods and humans and dedicated his life after supreme enlightenment to teach others the path to awakening. The path is still open. I'm having problems moving the slide to the next. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. We will begin this presentation with an overview of the topics that I will talk about today. Each of these slides that you are going to see will be looked at from the point of view of the practice. You can look for this in the text box on the side of each slide. The slides are arranged so that they will lead you gradually to the practice of meditation. You don't have to take notes. If you want a copy of the presentation, it will be made available to you through the organization. So this is the overview that I have planned for today. I will begin with homage to the Buddha. Then I will move on to what the Buddha said when he was questioned as to what is Nibbana. We will then move on to the core teachings of the Four Noble Truths. But again, we will be looking at it from the view of the practice. I will take a quotation from the Dhammapada about the teachings of all Buddhas, and this will lead us in greater detail into the practice and directly into the Noble Eight-Factored Path, which is morality, concentration, and wisdom, or in Pali, Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. As meditation is referred to as knowing the mind, developing or molding the mind, and cleansing the mind, I will begin with teaching you how you reflect and investigate to get to know the mind. The meditation that we will be using in this talk is mindfulness or Vipassana meditation and is taken from the Satipatthana Sutta. Since everyone is very familiar with morality, I will touch on morality. I will cover it, but I will focus more on concentration and wisdom, which both fall under meditation. We will close with the results and the benefits of the practice so that you can gauge for yourself how you are doing when you're practicing the Dhamma as the Buddha wanted you to practice and taught. And the last slide will be on the urgency to practice, because it's really, really important that we move from the theory to the practice. Homage to the Buddha, the blessed, noble, perfectly enlightened one. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranam gacchami, Buddhu guna saranam gacchami. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with the first three lines of this verse. In fact, some of us chant it 3 times daily, but often it gets to be a little mechanical. I added the 4th line to remind us that when we chant, we are saying that we are incorporating the qualities of the Buddha in ourselves. And what qualities are these? The first is the quality of the Buddha's purity. The second is his boundless compassion to all beings, irrespective of nationality, religion, caste, age, or gender. And the third is his profound wisdom. And how do we do this? We do it by practicing the Dhamma with a view to Nibbana. In the West, there are many organizations that teach mindfulness meditation. However, their goal is not Nibbana or the total elimination of suffering and the ending of samsara. This talk is a brief summary of the path to enlightenment. Let's see if this is going to work. Good. So, when the Buddha was asked, what is Nibbana? He didn't discuss or tell them what the experience of Nibbana was. Instead, he too went to the practice. The Lord Buddha said that the total elimination of the roots of the latent defilements is Nibbana. That is, the total elimination or absence of greed, hatred, and delusion, including ignorance, buried deep in the mind. That, friend, is Nibbana. However, we cannot start our practice with the removal of the latent defilements that are buried deep in the mind. This requires the fading away, abandoning, and elimination of 3 types of defilements. We will discuss this shortly when we discuss the topic of the teachings of all Buddhas. We will begin with the core teachings of the Buddha. I am sure that all of you are familiar with the Four Noble Truths. Today, we are going to look at it from the point of view of the practice. The Buddha said that the Four Noble Truths that he taught is a truth that has never been heard before. And he also introduced cause and effect in this teaching. We need to look at his words carefully to see what he meant. The Buddha said, let me move on here. Okay, the Buddha said, the noble truth of suffering is to be penetrated. And then he said, it has been penetrated. The Buddha said, the noble truth of the cause of suffering, craving, has to be abandoned. And then he said, it has been abandoned. The Buddha said, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, Nibbana, is to be experienced. And then he said, it has been experienced. And finally he said, the noble truth of the path to the cessation of suffering, the noble 8-factored path, has to be developed. And then he said, it has been developed. But he did not stop there. He also said that what he has achieved can be achieved by others. Let's start with the examples of suffering that the Buddha gave. Suffering is dukkha in Pali. Some of you may be more familiar with that word. The Buddha said, birth is suffering. Old age and sickness are suffering. Death is suffering. Separating from the pleasant and the loved is suffering. Having to associate the unpleasant and those that you do not like is suffering. Not getting what you want is suffering. I'm sure that most of you have experienced some of these examples that the Buddha gave. And I'm sure you will agree with the Buddha that losing somebody close to you, a mother, a grandfather, a child, is suffering. I'm sure you will agree that not getting what you want is suffering. Then why did the Buddha say that this is a truth that has not been heard before? We're going to have to see what he meant when he said penetrated, and the summary that he gave of the examples. He said, in brief, the 5 aggregates with clinging is dukkha. Now, the 5 aggregates is the body and the mind, which is composed of 4 aggregates. Basically, he is saying that the clue to suffering is within you. Suffering is within you. The cause of suffering is within you. And you are the person who can work towards it and eliminate the suffering. And everything is done within this body by observing this body and this mind. But this is exactly what he meant when he said penetrated. It was not just the examples that he gave, it's more. He said, as in when you experience dukkha or suffering, you need to see that the cause is craving, grasping, clinging, attachment, and that it is within you, not outside. This needs to be investigated and experienced and seen by yourself. And we will be learning how to do that today. The second thing he said was about cause and effect. He introduced cause and effect in the Four Noble Truths. Do you know there are 4 examples of cause and effect in this slide with the Four Noble Truths? The very first one is between the first and the second Noble Truth. If the Noble Truth of craving is in your mind, then you can be sure that the effect of suffering will be there. The second one that I'm going to show you is the third and the fourth. If one practices the path to cessation of suffering, the Noble Eight-Factored Path, as the Buddha taught, to the level required by the Buddha, then the effect will be the third Noble Truth, the cessation of suffering, and Nibbana that has been experienced. Now we will examine the third example of cause and effect, and it is between the second and the third Noble Truth. If you abandon the cause of suffering, craving, then you will experience a cessation of suffering. You'll see a glimpse of Nibbana. So every time that there is suffering, and you feel and experience distress, suffering, discomfort, you have to look for the cause. And if you can identify the cause as craving, attachment, grasping, and you let it go, then you will be able to experience a glimpse of the peace of mind, of Nibbana. Not Nibbana where all suffering is eliminated, but this is what you can do in the path so that you are experiencing what you will be experiencing in the future when you go through the whole path. And the last example is when the fourth Noble Truth is taken as the effect. When you practice the Noble Truth of the path of the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eight-Factored Path to fruition, to the point of full awakening, then the Noble Truth of suffering will be penetrated. The Noble Truth of the cause of suffering will be totally eliminated, abandoned. And the Noble Truth of the cessation of suffering, Nibbana, will be experienced. The Buddha said that what he has achieved can be achieved by you. But he then showed us how it can be done. We are going to now look at the teachings of all Buddhas, because you are going to use this for our practice. I'm going to take it line by line. This is not just the teachings of the Lord Buddha Gautama. This is the teaching of all Buddhas and is taken from the Dhammapada. The Buddha said, refrain from the evil. What did he mean? He meant refrain from unskillful actions of conduct and speech. And that is the section of morality in the Noble Eight-Factored Path. The second line, he said, develop the skillful. Now, most people think that what he meant was to be kind and compassionate, to be equanimous, sympathetic to people. That comes under morality, but it is true, that is the skillful, and we can develop that too. In this context, what all the Buddhas meant is the practice of concentration. Because in the first line, we only address conduct by body, by deed and speech. We did not touch the mind. We have to abandon the defilements of the mind. So we have to abandon and submerge unskillful actions of the mind. And this is desire that leads to attachment and ill will that leads to conflict. So this is what all the Buddhas meant when they said develop the skillful in this particular quotation. And the third line says, cleanse the mind. And what did the Buddha mean when he said cleanse the mind? He meant abandon the roots of greed, hatred, and delusion. These are the latent dhammas that he recognized as Nibbana when they are eliminated. So, the fourth line shows clearly that this is the teaching of all Buddhas, and the teaching of all Buddhas is the practice of the Noble Eight-Factored Path. So this quotation was very simple, but tells so much, is so profound, and it doesn't stop there. At the start, when I taught you what latent dhammas were and what Nibbana was as the Buddha defined, I said that you couldn't start there. We had three types of defilements. Well, with the practice of morality, concentration, and wisdom, you get rid of all three. The first type, which is easier to subdue and abandon, is known as transgressional defilements. The practice of morality to the level the Buddha required eliminates those. The second type of defilement is called manifestation defilement. And with the practice of concentration, you subdue and submerge and eliminate those. And the third type is the latent defilements. And with the practice of wisdom and developing this practice of meditation, you abandon and eliminate those. So with the practice of the Noble Eightfold Path, not only do you complete morality, concentration, and wisdom, you eliminate all the defilements, mental defilements, the defilements of conduct and speech, and you can attain full awakening, just as the Buddha did. Now I'm going to briefly introduce you to the Noble Eight-Factored Path. That is the path to enlightenment that we have to develop. I have arranged the Noble Eight-Factored Path in the order of practice, as per the teaching of all Buddhas, which was in the previous slide. It starts with morality. But I want to assure you that morality also includes kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. Yes, refraining from bad conduct or unskillful conduct or unskillful speech or unskillful livelihood automatically makes you a kind person and a compassionate person. But this first teaching was given to the 5 monks who are living in a very quiet environment, in seclusion. And they had also, in the way of generosity, practiced to the highest level. They had given up all their wealth, all their possessions, left their family, and were putting their sole effort and focus for the practice of awakening or enlightenment. For us lay people, it's different. We have houses and cars and so many possessions that we have to start the practice of letting go with generosity. So even though it's not in the Noble Eightfold Path or the Eight-Factored Path, believe me, that was his very first teaching. In the 7 weeks after enlightenment, the Buddha taught 2 lay people, 2 merchants called Tapassu and Balluka. And he started with generosity and went down 5 or 6 steps to renunciation. So generosity is very important for lay people. Now I will briefly go through morality. So right conduct, everybody knows that. You refrain from killing, stealing, or taking that which is not given to you, and sexual misconduct. And right speech, that is, you don't tell lies. You refrain from telling falsehood, lies, and exaggeration. You refrain from divisive speech, that is slander. You refrain from harsh language where you're hurting other people with your language. And you don't gossip. You refrain from useless words that are of no use or value to yourself or others. And right livelihood. I'm not sure if everyone knows what that is. Right livelihood is conducting one livelihood ethically by using right conduct and right speech. But it is also ensuring that one's employment is ethical and harmless to all living beings. A couple of examples that the Buddha didn't encourage and ask us not to go into is the job of a fisherman or a butcher, where you have to kill living beings. And another is going into the selling and manufacture of weapons which are for the purpose of killing, like guns and bombs and tanks. So when you practice morality, we use restraint and reflection. That's how we complete the practice of morality. And in the next slide on morality, I will teach you exactly how we do that. But when you have a daily practice of keeping the precepts of morality consistently over a long period of time, you have mastered 3 of the 8 factors of the Noble Eightfold Path. The practice of morality is also a requirement for the successful practice of meditation. So you're ready to go to the next step. But the important thing is, people don't really understand the importance of morality. You're almost 40% of the Noble Eightfold Path if you keep it without breaking the precepts and keep it for a long period of time, not for a week or a month. Make it your daily life. I'm going to now briefly talk about concentration and wisdom because I will be covering it in detail later. Concentration is a consistent practice of right effort and right mindfulness. That's the 4th and the 5th, according to this order. And when you practice right effort and right mindfulness, as per the Satipatthana Sutra, it leads to right one-pointedness. Sometimes it's called right concentration, but I like to use the word right one-pointedness. And as a result of completing right effort, right mindfulness, and right one-pointedness, you have right concentration. So, right effort and right mindfulness is where you have to put the effort. And the result is right one-pointedness. Because we have a very good understanding of morality and most of us are following the precept, observing the precepts very carefully. This is where you must focus. Great effort and consistent practice of mindfulness is required to master the level required for concentration. And to give a short summary on wisdom or insight, if you continue the practice of Satipatthana Sutta as per your teacher's instruction, and you can use any of the good teachers, they all teach the same thing, the path to Nibbana. Wisdom or insight arises when right one-pointedness or concentration is at the required level. The defilements buried deep in the mind, the latent defilements, are brought to the surface, and we are taught to let go of them with equanimity. One must not react to these thoughts and emotions. One must let them surface and then let go of them with equanimity. So I will tell you a little bit more about morality, especially how you reflect and restrain and help to keep morality, but also what you should do if you break them. First and foremost, morality, keeping morality, prevents rebirth in an unhappy realm. Now, I'm not sure if you know what the unhappy realms are. They are the animal realm, the preta realm, and I guess here in English we say the ghost, the asura realm, and here they say like devils or whatever, and the hell realms. So keeping morality ensures that you don't take rebirth in one of those unhappy realms. And how we practice morality, that is right conduct, right speech, and right livelihood, is through restraint and reflecting. What do I mean by reflecting? Well, the Buddha gave this advice to his little son Rahula. He said, Rahula, before you say or do something, reflect and see if what you're saying and what you're doing is going to be harmful to yourself or others. And reflect and see if it is for your benefit and for the benefit of others. And if this is the case, then go ahead and use those words, use that language, and do that conduct. This is a very good teaching, and it was given to a 7-year-old child, but it applies to all of us. If we can reflect before we say and do something and make sure it's for our benefit and the others, we too will, develop morality the way the Buddha wanted. But there is another method too, because we are in training and we are bound to break them from time to time. So you reflect twice a day, say at lunchtime and at dinner time. And when you reflect, if you see that you have broken one of the precepts, what do? First thing is you remember that you are in training. Do not be judgmental of yourself if you break the precepts. Renew the precepts and continue your practice of restraint and reflection. Know that when one breaks the precepts, one is with false view. The first thing is, first of the Noble Eightfold Path is right view. But at this point, then you will be in false view. And that is not good, because everything you do after that when you're in false view can go the wrong way, because we are trying to make them all right view and all of them right, not false. So what we do is we invest, and there's also one more thing, because breaking of the precepts results in suffering and it affects your meditation, because this comes into your mind. So we investigate the cause and circumstances, form a strategy for prevention, apologize if necessary. You are now developing insight and keeping precepts through wisdom, not just because the Lord Buddha or anyone else is saying this to you. No, the Noble Eightfold Path is now a working together, and all the factors, one is helping the other. Morality helps concentration, concentration helps wisdom, morality helps wisdom, and wisdom helps morality. The Noble Path is now a working together, and 3 of the 8 factors are now completed. The Buddha defined meditation as knowing the mind, or bhavana. I like to use the Pali word so that everybody knows what I'm talking about, is knowing the mind, molding or developing the mind, and then tensing or purifying the mind. So we are going to start by getting to know your mind. And how we do this is we reflect and investigate every time when we feel stress, suffering, and relate it to the cause. Craving and grasping that is within. We observe and abandon if we see greed, hatred, or delusion, or any of the minor defilements like jealousy, ill will. We learn to let go. So in our practice, through reflection and investigation, even before we start meditation and even when we do, we can always use this strategy. When we feel distress, when we feel discomfort, when we feel suffering, we can examine and see what did we do? What was the result? So let's take an example on how this should be done. Let's take an example of a colleague who you know very well. And one day, out of the blue, he just comes and belittles you and yells at you, and he does it in front of someone else. Now, what happens? In general, anger flares up when a person does not behave the way you want. So there's a good likelihood that you may get angry and yell back at the person or say something. You will realize, if you do this reflection, that one is more affected if the incident occurs in public or by a person that you trusted or is close to you. If you did react in anger, generally, you regret your harsh words because you know that your colleague did something wrong and now you stoop to the same level. You didn't have to do the same thing he did. Now you have gone down to his level. So you tend to, not when I say you, even I, we tend to regret it afterwards. You will also find that repeated thinking or talking about an incident tends to sustain anger. It even escalates anger. Now you might tell me, oh, no, I go to my counselor and I feel really good after. Yes, if you have been abused or there is a serious condition, you should go and speak to somebody confidentially. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the gossip that goes on at the coffee table when somebody is not there. Others get together and talk about that person. Or when something like this happens, how you go and tell one person and then another person and another person about what happened. That tends to sustain anger and even escalates anger. You will find that the incident is easier to forget if it is a stranger or if it is an isolated incident. If you can let go and forget, there is a cessation of suffering. You will be able to glimpse that suffering fade away. What we talked about when you abandon craving or attachment. So we'll look for some trends. If you observe your mind over a period of time, stay a few months, 4 months, 6 months, you might see some of these. You might see different ones too. I just took a few examples. You might realize that desire and attachment, the Pali word is abhijja, is the cause of suffering. I'll give you a couple of examples. When you don't get what you want, you will feel the suffering and you know that that's the reason. And expectations are not met. Maybe neighbor's son went drinking. That wasn't too bad, but he took your son and went drinking. You didn't want your son to go. Expectations are not being met. And you're separated from a loved one. You may see this and realize that what the Buddha said is true and that the cause of the pain is within you, not outside. It is not the external trigger, the person who yelled. Because if that person is not known, the anger is not as bad. You're not affected, you can let it go. So the feeling is that attachment. You will find that aversion, ill will, and conflict, vyapada is the Pali word, leads to suffering in all instances. And if you practice further, you will see that all views and opinions, that's the first factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, cause suffering if you grasp them, even if they're true, even if you think it's true. And this is because people are conditioned in different ways they have different experiences. So one person's truth may not be another person's truth because of the way they were brought up, the experiences they have. So all views and opinions causes suffering if you grasp them, because it tends to lead to conflict. And you will find over time that the external trigger of suffering is not the cause of suffering. This is a false view. It is only the trigger. The suffering you feel and experience is within you. The meditation that we are going to use is from the Satipatthana Sutra, or the 4 foundations of establishing mindfulness. The Buddha endorsed this Satipatthana Sutra by saying that it is the one and only way, or the direct path to enlightenment. It's translated both ways into English. Some use the word the one and only way, and some say that it is the direct path to enlightenment. And what does it contain? In summary, it contains mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of mind objects. The great thing is that if you establish mindfulness on the body, the other 3, with the same meditation techniques that your teacher has given you, come automatically. When you're ready, you go from one to the other to the other. Now, there are 14 instructions in practicing mindfulness of the body. It's called Kaya Anupassana. The most commonly used are breathing awareness meditation, walking meditation, and the body scan, or a combination. Protective meditations also can be used for strong emotions. They are also there in the section under Kaya Anupassana, or some of them are. For lust, you can use impurities of the body. If you have a lot of anger and hatred, is disturbing your meditation, you can do loving kindness meditation. If you can't get into the practice, you can use one of the cemetery meditations to help you with the urgency to practice. When you have established mindfulness on the body, at the sole of the feet, when you use walking meditation, or at the point of touch of the in-breath and the out-breath, in the area around the nostrils and upper lip, in sitting meditation, one-pointedness arises. You require an experienced meditation teacher at this point, because you're going into the serious practice now. He or she should be one that inspires, motivates, and develops your self-confidence, because you do this on your own. You have to practice, and the practice is something you do on your own. So make sure that you find the method and the teacher that is right for you. There are many methods, and this I am from the Theravada tradition that is in Burma, Thailand, and Sri Lanka, and Cambodia. And there are very, very good teachers in all these countries. You find the right one for you and the right method for you. When the Buddha was there, he could read your mind and say, this is what is right for you. Now we don't have the Buddha. There are some very good teachers who can do that. But the best way is for you to know your mind, get to know your mind, do these reflections, and then you will know when you're developing in the path. So I will be showing you how you can judge yourself to know where you are. When you have a daily practice of keeping the precepts of morality and have established mindfulness on your body consistently, the practice leads to mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of objects. So the same teachings that your teacher is giving you will take you through all 4 sections. One observes the mind and abandons unskillful mental states with equanimity. Now we are into the practice of wisdom when you're starting to do that. One knows that clinging to them results in proliferation, that is, you're thinking and you're going on and on about the same thing, and it escalates suffering. This is with the practice, you start knowing these things and experiencing these. The theory will show you how to practice. The free, open discussion with teacher and Dhamma friends gives you confidence. Only the practice gives experiential results. I'm having a problem. That should be concentration. Oh no, that's fine. Getting to know the mind is next. Sorry, I can turn 2 pages at a time. Just give me a minute here. It's like I have my notes out of order. I turned 2 pages at one time. Sorry about that.
No worries.
What we need to know to get to know your... Oh no, I covered that. I'm sorry. I did cover that. Maybe I just didn't... yeah, I did cover that. Sorry. So I'm at right concentration now. Okay. Sorry about this. Sometimes I forget to move the slides. So in right concentration, right effort and right mindfulness are required to realize right one-pointedness and right concentration. So this is where we have to concentrate, because at this point, you already have morality and have completed it. What is meant by right effort in this instance is more than just keeping aside unskillful thoughts and ideas. It is more than bringing skillful thoughts into your mind. It is a practice of mindfulness meditation, which is defined as non-judgmental present moment awareness. The Buddha said that the highest level of merit or the highest skillful deed that you can do is the practice of mindfulness meditation. So in this instance, what is meant by unskillful mental states is anything that is going to take you away from your meditation. And the skillful mental states is anything that is going to encourage you and help you in your mindfulness in the present moment. So if you are using breathing awareness, every time you keep your mind or your awareness on the in-breath and the out-breath, and you feel the sensation in the area of the nostrils and the upper lip, you are practicing the third and the fourth right effort, and you are practicing right mindfulness as per your teacher. And if you are in walking meditation, and that's what your teacher is teaching you, every time you walk and your mindfulness is on the sole of your foot and the right foot and the sole of your foot when you put the left foot, and you can feel the sensations, and your mind is not going here and there. And if it goes, you bring it gently back. Then your mindfulness is in the present moment, and you are practicing right effort and right mindfulness. And these two together leads to right one-pointedness, which is, so you got to really practice this ardently and consistently. It's not something that will happen in a week or two, or even a month or a year. It is a long-term thing, because this is the next step. But it leads to the wisdom. And I know that there are people here from Goenkaji's 10-day retreats. You will experience it right there at the retreat. So you know that what I'm saying is experientially true. When you have the concentration of the first 3.5 days, and when you start the Vipassana practice, you see this for yourself. So, right one-pointedness, it abandons and submerges the mental defilements of desire and ill will, and the 5 hindrances when one practices mindful meditation with ardent effort consistently. So the section of concentration and wisdom Both require mindfulness meditation as per the Satipatthana Sutra. Meditation or bhavana is defined as knowing the mind, molding the mind, and cleansing the mind, and I have covered that. For our practice, we will use reflection, investigation, and the practice of meditation as per the discourse of the 4 foundations of establishing mindfulness, and together with the practice of generosity and morality as per the Buddha, and a good understanding and acceptance of the law of karma, intentional actions of conduct, speech, and mind, one realizes mundane right view and mundane right thoughts, which are the first and second of the Noble Eight-Factored Path in the section of wisdom. So this is kind of really important, because you have the morality, you have the generosity, you have compassion, loving kindness, all that already, most of you. And if you haven't, after this, you can start the, polish up your practice a little bit. So with this concentration, you have realized this mundane right view and right thoughts. And when you have done this practice further, when one develops right one-pointedness to the level required for the first stage of awakening, known as Sotapanna, one realizes supramundane right view. The experience of supramundane right view only occurs at the time of realization. So you begin by having lots of experiences of the mundane right view and the mundane right thoughts. And you can see now that your mind has lots of skillful thoughts, wholesome thoughts, and that those defilements have faded away. They are less than what it was before you started the practice. So you have to keep your morality to see these effects and these improvements, and you have to continue with your practice of meditation. I'm going to now move to the next slide, which is wisdom, and covers mundane right view and right thought. Wisdom arises with the practice of mindfulness meditation. Satipatthana, Vipassana, same name, same thing, different names. There are 2 types of right view, mundane right view and supramundane right view. Right view is what we are talking about in this slide. Mundane right view arises when one has a good understanding and acceptance of the law of karma and right thought. Law of karma is really important, because when you know that it is your actions that gave these results, you refrain from unskillful actions. And when you know that good actions give you good results, you do it. But if you don't know that, you might just go this way and that way, kind of lost in the jungle. So when you have a good understanding and acceptance of the law of karma and right thoughts, and these are thoughts of renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. So renunciation here for lay people is generosity. It is letting go, right? So when you have thoughts of letting go, renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness, and a good understanding of the law of karma, a person who practices you then have right view, mundane. But a person who is practicing meditation, before you reach this stage of Sotapanna, oscillates between mundane right view and wrong view. And you can't help this, because it's very hard without having the strong mind to keep it to perfection. But even if you break it, it is generally the milder ones that you will be doing, not the really serious ones. I'm going to go into wisdom or supramundane right view. And this really now is more theoretical, because this covers persons who have attained the 4 stages of enlightenment or awakening. As I said, the path is open to all, to lay people too. So we should not think that it is only for monks or only for persons who are leading a very ascetic type of life. Even at the time of the Buddha, there were many lay people who had attained Sotapanna. Lady Visakha, for example, the main benefactress of the Buddha, and Anathapindika, one of the male benefactors of the Buddha. And there were others. There was Chitta, who had gone up to the third stage of enlightenment as a lay person. So there have been many people who have realized these stages as a lay person, but practicing diligently as the Buddha recommended. So, what is supramundane wisdom? Supramundane wisdom arises with the continued practice of mindfulness meditation as per the Satipatthana Sutta of what we call Vipassana Bhavana. One continues to let go of latent and other defilements that arise with equanimity. That is important, that you have the equanimity. Oh, we are going to fail from time to time and get angry and get carried away, right? That's what I say. Meditation is non-judgmental, present moment of awareness. You must not be judgmental about yourself. You are in training. Neither should you be judgmental about others or compare. Supramundane wisdom leads to the elimination of suffering and the penetration or knowing of the Four Noble Truths. And for those who may be aware of the dependent origination, the elimination of ignorance is the penetration of the Four Noble Truths. A person who has realized supramundane right view is known as a noble person, an Arya, as they have realized at least the first stage of stream entry. After that, that term is used. The experience of supramundane right view only occurs at the time of realization. This experience occurs 4 times. And on the 4th time, one is an awakened being, and all the bindings, there are 10 bindings or 10 samyojana, are severed. So, to summarize this section, because I want to do a little bit more than reading out of the slide, one has established mindfulness in the body. Mindfulness become effortless. One needs to continue the practice of the teacher's instructions to develop the Satipatthana Sutta to fruition. Painful or lustful thoughts may arise. This is the cleansing of the mind through wisdom and the effect of your growing level of mindfulness and one-pointedness. Just let go and be equanimous. This too is impermanent. When one develops right one-pointedness to the levels required for the various stages of awakening, one realizes supramundane right view. This progress leads towards the ending of samsara. Such a person can see that the cause of suffering is craving and grasping. They do not blame others for the vicissitudes of life. They also let go of defilements as they arise with equanimity. This knowing happens in the present moment, not after the fact on reflection. We start it like that. That's how we start our practice, so that we get to know what is there. And then through the meditation, you move closer and closer to doing it real time. This knowing or seeing becomes more pronounced and consistent when they progress to 2nd and 3rd stage of awakening, Sakadagami and Anagami. They continue consistently with the practice until the mind is unshaken and wisdom is established and supramundane. This is known as the rising of an Arahant. I'm going to cover the results and benefits of the practice, because then you can judge yourself. You may not get all this immediately, but over time, you will see that the purification of the being has begun, and there is a slight fading away of desire that leads to attachment and ill will that leads to conflict. Overcoming of sorrow, there is a gradual reduction. Overcoming of lamentation, that's when you cry when something has happened and you're lamenting. a gradual reduction. You can accept certain inevitable things like death and not getting what you want and not having your own way all the time without going into deep sorrow and lamentation. Letting go of ownership of bodily pain as mine. There is bodily pain, but you don't go and make it as my pain. And for people who I consider as mine, like my son or my daughter, we get really involved when they are sick and when they are in pain. You do what has to be done. Take them to the doctor, take care of them, but you don't increase your suffering by dwelling on it and making it and grasping it tightly, because that doesn't really help. You let go of the ownership of grief and mental anguish. That's the ones of the mind. And those that you consider as mine, like your family. And again, it's the same thing. Now, if you continue this way, the three established wisdoms are realized when one reaches Sotapanna, Sakadagami, and Anagami. An Arahant has realized the fourth established wisdom and supramundane wisdom. He or she is unshaken and has extinguished all defilements. They are not born again into any realm of existence. And I'm sure that there are lay teachers like Goenkaji and other teachers that you may have worked with who have reached the different levels of sainthood, just as there are monks in existence in the countries like Burma, Tibet, and Sri Lanka who have realized these levels of sainthood. So I will close with why we should practice with a view to Nibbana. Alakini buduvara yako ipadinne dukakini minisak bavalabagane medekini mesasara duralanne sudaneni Kimaviriya nokarane sudaneni kimaviriya nokarane. Rya is the birth of an enlightened being. Through effort is birth as a human obtained. With these two conditions is liberation from samsara achieved. Why, good people, do you not strive on them? Some of you may have read my book, Practicing the Dhamma with a View to Nibbana. The first section of this covers why you should practice and has detailed accounts on how hard and what you have to go through to be a Buddha, how difficult it is to get human birth, how easy it is to make a mistake and go into an unhappy realm, and how fortunate we are to be at a time when not only do we have human birth and good health, but the teachings, the true teachings, are available in many of the Theravada countries and now in the West, because they have brought it to the West. The goal is within your reach. Strive on with diligence. I dedicate the merit of this presentation to my teachers of the past and present, my family and the Dhamma friends that have assisted and supported me in the practice. For any of you who want to see the dangers or know more about the dangers, there is a very good YouTube program called Buddhist Cosmology, done by Ajahn Sona of the Birken Forest Monastery. With that, I would like to thank you for inviting me and open for any questions.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Radhika ji, that is so good that you walk us through this one. I see Reverend Bhante online, Ahangama Bhante. Bhante, do you want it to Anumodan or bless the talk, Bhante? Reverend Ahangama? Okay, I think maybe Bhante is not able to unmute right now. Yeah. So we'll open up the forum for question and answer right now. Please raise your hand. We will allow you to unmute and ask your question. Thank you very much for making us realize the urgency to practice. That's kind of the gist of the whole book that you wrote, Practicing the Dhamma with a View to Nibbana, and why the urgency is there. We are in a good time right now and we need to get it over. And so thank you very much. Yes, we will make the PowerPoint presentation available on the WhatsApp group that we have. We will take it from Radhika ji, and she gracefully agreed to share that with us. So we will make that available. I do not see any other question. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I'm checking if I missed anybody's question.
I just want to make sure that it was clear and everybody could hear.
Yes, Radhika ji, it was absolutely clear, right? Yeah, we have recording on it. It is also being presented on YouTube. So we can replay it and it would be
available. That's fine. I just, because when I'm here, I don't see anyone and I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's why I purposefully keep myself there. So at least, you know,
yes,
that the call is on and you haven't dropped out or anything like that.
It is good. So if there is no questions, I'll just add one thing because a question came to me. They asked what I think is the most important thing, or more than one, for the practice to be successful. And I think for the practice to be successful, and I'm talking a serious practice, I'm not talking mindfulness for just stress reduction and for a little bit of happiness and everything. I'm talking for people who are seriously want to take one step on the path to enlightenment, or 10 steps on the path to enlightenment, is a suitable teacher. And in other words, Kalyana Mitra, right? A teacher and also good friends, because it's very easy. The good teacher, yeah, we are fortunate now, even with the language problems we have, because we out here in the West, we have to look hard to find an English-speaking teacher. But there are teachers available in the West, and of course, there are in other countries people in their own language that they can go to. But it is also important to have a circle of friends who are practicing, because it's very easy to derail if you are not with a group of people who are practicing. In the Mahamangala Sutra, the Buddha said, the first one, he says, do not associate the foolish, associate the wise. By the foolish, he didn't mean a person who doesn't have education or anything like that. No, he didn't mean that. What he meant is a person who is not keeping the precepts, a person who is not keeping morality, a person who is leading you the wrong way into maybe alcohol or drugs. That is what he meant. So having people who are of the same like mind is very, very important. And the other thing is having a consistent practice. I find this with even myself. I'm all excited and I go for a retreat and I say, I'm going to do it 2 times a day, you know. And then after some time, I get busy with my daily life and I can't keep it twice, my 1 hour, twice a day practice. But when teachers and all the teachers, whether your teacher is a lay teacher or a monk, says that the best is to have 2 hours a day, they know what they're talking about, right? But you have to at least have 1 hour a day, and you must try to be consistent, because if not, it is difficult to achieve any of these things that we talked about. But that's what the question that came to me, so I thought I'll just share that with you.
Yes, I see one question there, couple of hands raised. Kusalanyani, I'm going to ask you to go ahead with your question. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, very happy to see you in live. This is my first time. I'm from Nepal. Very interesting topic, practice Dhamma with a view to Nibbana. I have one question.
Yes.
If a person have a misunderstanding and a bad perception or narrow-minded, how we deal with the person with practicing Dhamma and to get the Nibbana? Is any ideas? Any?
Okay, I want to make sure I understand the question properly first. So you said if there is a misunderstanding, what do you mean if there is a misunderstanding between 2 people? Or maybe I didn't hear it properly.
Yeah. 2 people or 2 society. Yeah.
Yes.
There is a misunderstanding and
Yes.
there is a narrow-minded.
Oh, narrow-mindedness. Okay.
Yeah.
So now the thing is, your name is Kusalani? I don't know. I can't see the name here. So anyway, the only person that we can change is ourselves. We cannot change another person. We sometimes can influence another person. If it's a child or if it is someone very close to us who respects us, they might take your advice. So this is something that you will learn when you do your reflections, that sometimes it is very difficult because what we want to do is to change the other person and not ourselves. So there is a misunderstanding. And the reason for the misunderstanding normally is because the 2 people are coming from 2 different worlds. What I mean by that is 2 different views. So say, for example, I grew up in Sri Lanka and somebody else grew up in the West their whole life. My attitudes, my way of life will be very, very different to the person who was born in the West, say in America or Canada, and grew up. And as a result, there will be many misunderstandings because 2 worlds are clashing. And we are each thinking that what I'm saying is right because it is true for us. That is based on our experience. This is true. And the other person is also thinking what I'm thinking and what I'm saying is right, because this is true based on their life and the life they have led and what they have been exposed for. So in these situations, there has to be a lot of respect and tolerance between the people. If the people are so strong-willed, and that's why I have that slide highlighted in one of the box, that any view or opinion, if you grasp it very tightly, even if it's right, it will lead to suffering because it leads to conflict, right? So this is a very difficult situation. And if you can see, the world wars are happening because of this in the countries, right? Political strife is because of this very same reason, because the 2 parties each think that their view is right. And there is no give and take, there is no compromise, and there is no respect for the other person's point of view, or they have got so strong in their views that they have dug themselves almost into a hole. And all there is conflict, and that leads to a very bad situation. So it is not an easy situation to resolve. And the only way is for the party who realizes this, the one who is practicing, us, to realize that the suffering you feel is within you. So you can accept this person's other view and say, we choose to disagree, but don't go into arguments and fights, because you're not going to change the other person. This is just my opinion only. I'm not saying it's the right answer, but it is a very difficult situation. If we look at the world around us right now, it's happening all over for very, very strong views and opinions, and being narrow-minded that this is the only right way and this is the only way things are. Did I help you a little even? Oh, did I lose her?
No, we are just trying to find her out, see if she's still
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, Bhante.
Mrs. Radhika Abeysekara and all good friends. I am Bhante Ratnasiri speaking here. First of all, I should thank Mrs. Radhika Abeysekara. On behalf of the Abeysekara mission, I invited her to join in this session. So it was a very inspiring speech. I know that she is very busy these days. Although she was busy, she accepted my invitation. Thank you very much, Mrs. Radhika Abeysekara, for giving an inspiring speech to these Buddhist people. They are very interested in your talk. I am sure that it was very beneficial for their daily practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Swami Vahansa. Teruvan Saranai.
Teruvan Saranai.
Sadhu, 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 Bhante. Thank you very much, Bhante. Praveen Thade, sir, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Dada. Good morning, teacher. Thank you so much for the nice session. Teacher, I have a question on precept. So it's a combined effect, like morality will be increased if you follow the precept. But what is the opposite, like one fails in maintaining each precept? Suppose one is strong, not in all. If one fails in one precept, how to identify like what impact is it makes on the mind? Out of 5 precepts, one is not good in making all 5. So how to see that which precept and how it is affecting our mind?
Okay, let me make sure I understood your question. You're saying that a person is breaking all 5, and how do you know which of the 5 is affecting you? Is that what you're saying?
No, out of 5, and even out of 5.
Oh, you're breaking 1 out of 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know. Now, if you're following the 5 precepts, now when you start the meditation practice, we follow the ones as per the Noble Eightfold Path. So it increases from the 5. So that means you're telling me that out of the 5, there I will not kill, I will not steal, I will not indulge in sexual misconduct, and I will not tell lies, and I will not take alcohol or drugs or any intoxicants. That's the 5. So I don't know which one you're saying, but usually the one in the West, and this may not be right, the one that they have problems with is the one with alcohol and drugs. They ask whether we can come for the retreat and not take, and when we go home, whether we can take it. In that example, the Buddha, it might not be your one, but I'll just cover that and then say any of the other ones. That example, the Buddha said to stay away from any intoxicants or mind-altering drugs, because from morality, you are going into the mind. Concentration and wisdom is all developing the mind. And what you have done is you have drugged the mind. and you're trying to do something. Also, the taking of alcohol or any of those causes heedlessness. And that means you can break all of the others too, because you are less strong, your mind is less strong. Now, if it is not that, and it is one of the other ones you're talking about, how do you know? Well, one way of knowing is you see if you would like it if someone does that to you, right? So if you're talking about breaking the precept of killing, right? And it's not a person, but it's animals. I know there are sometimes children, they think nothing of killing a bug, and if they see it, they squash it. And you just think, okay, all beings want to live. All beings don't want to be hurt. So just as I do not want to be hurt, and I don't want to die, and I don't want to break my leg or my hand or anything like that, others don't want it too. So you can think that way and think, this is going to be painful for this other person. And if I don't like it, why am I giving this pain to another person? How will it affect the mind? In meditation, it will come into your mind because you know that you have broken the precept. You know that you have hurt some living being. If it is stealing, it's the same thing. Sexual misconduct, it's the same thing. Now, people tend to, because you just think, would I like it if someone did it for me? And that's one way that you can help yourself not to break the precepts. But if you are doing speech, people think it's not that bad, it's not that important, not like the ones by conduct. But it is because you tend to make it a pattern. And people don't trust a person who is telling lies all the time. And you don't realize the damage you do if you have divisive speech where you put two friends and for jealousy or whatever reason, you divide them by talking about this one with that one and that one with this one, or going and telling wrong things about one person to another. Why not bring people together? Why not do the opposite? Like the person was saying, how do we help to bring harmony when there are two people together? We have to then try to be the better person and change ourselves and think, is this so important as to lose a friend? That kind of a thing, and see if we can change our behavior in any of the other ones that we are breaking, because all of them will affect your meditation. Okay? I don't know if it was clear, my answer.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I went on to mute. Sorry, I do not see any more questions online in the chat box either. I do not see any questions in the YouTube online as well. So with that, then before taking the session for conclusion, if Bhante is still with us, Bhante Ratan Siri, I wanted to request Bhante for the Anumodana. Bhante, are you there, Bhante? Can you please do the Anumodan for us, Bhante?
Maybe he has left. It's very, very late in the East Coast.
Yes, but yeah, I kind of realized, and our timing is to manage all 4 zones in west side here
Yes.
and India, and sometimes our speaker are from Myanmar and further east. Then so we have to kind of cover a lot of windows time zone wise. So yes, Bhante, it might be very late for Bhante right now. Bhante, we are truly grateful for your help, Bhante, for connecting us. And I wanted to express our gratitude to Radhika ji from Living Dhamma Group, from Abeysekara Association of North America, to come over and deliver this lecture for us. I know you were very busy, and we read your book and we were hooked on it. And we had to kind of make efforts to get you online and talk to you. And you were so gracious, and you kind of take time for us to deliver this talk. We are truly grateful for your Dhammadana today.
Thank you so much. It was very nice, and I thank you for inviting me, and I enjoyed being able to do this presentation for you. Good luck with all your other presentations.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. Next week, I have an announcement for next week's topic. So next week onward, it's going to be a 2-part series. And it's a 2-part series that is a 2-part series done by Professor Siva Nagi Reddy. And he's going to talk on a topic of Buddhist sites and monuments in Andhra Pradesh, India. He works in archaeology, and so he's kind of talking from his own work and the sites and the monuments that they were able to discover in Andhra Pradesh. So this series would be covered in 2 parts. Next week and the week after. So Professor Dr. Siva Nagi Reddy. So please do join us for those as well. And so that would be our next 2 sessions coming up. So with that, I just wanted to express one more time our deep gratitude to Radhika ji, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And our Vandani and our deep felt gratitude to you. And for Punyanumodana, we will recite the Pali Gatha. Etavata cha ammehi sampadam niya sampadam sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Etavata cha ammehi sampadam niya sampadam sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Etavata cha ammehi sampadam punya sampadam sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Again, Radhika ji, much gratitude to you, and you have our foremost wishes with you for a healthy, prosperous life.
Thank you. The same to all of you.
Yeah. May you reach to Nibbana as soon as possible.
Thank you. Same to all of you.
With that, we will conclude our today's session. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next week on our weekly Dhamma learning series by Living Dhamma USA and Abeysekara Association of North America. With that, it's Namaste.